Welcome back to another OhmLab tutorial. Today we're going to be taking a look at something called ducking, volume ducking. But more specifically, how we're going to accomplish the volume ducking is through a technique called sidechain compression. Explain this, break it down in a way that everyone can understand, and make sure that everyone knows that this is a simple thing at the end of the day. A lot of people overcomplicate this one. So we're just going to jump right into this. We're going to use a very simple pad synth. We're going to duck or reduce the volume of this pad, specifically every time the kick drum. Now, the point of doing this is to allow the kick drum to be more present in the mix. Cut through or punch through or however you want to say this. You're going to hear the kick drum better, okay? We're going to use a little something called sidechain compression to accomplish this. Sidechain compression is not necessarily volume ducking. And in fact, you can use a sidechain trigger or audio signal such a large degree or number of ways. It's really unfair when you hear people say, "Oh yeah, I just sidechained that. That's how I got my kick drum." And it's a little misleading for people that don't really understand what's happening. So let's take a look at it really quick. We're going to actually look at this two different ways. I already have a few audio samples. I know a lot of people just work with it. So I figured we'd start with that. But there is a couple extra steps if you're using software to produce your beat. If you're using something like Ultrabeat or Battery or something like that. And we'll get into how to route that. It's all very simple. Fear not. Let's go ahead and get started. You can use any synth to follow along with this. This is just a little synth that's actually going to be included in an upcoming release. Made a very simple beat. Here's the track. And if you listen closely to the music playing and what happens to it when I'm actually talking versus when I'm silent, you're going to notice that I actually have some automated volume ducking set up on this video right now. When I'm not talking, the music is a little bit louder. When I am talking, it ducks kind of into the background by about 10%. Hear this all the time on television, for instance. News reporters, the on-the-scene guy, the on-the-streets reporter, oftentimes, if you pay close attention, you're going to hear a huge difference in the background noise, right around the moments where he's starting and stopping talking. It's a difficult thing to nail down. A lot of news houses spend enough time on it, or maybe they're dealing with too many variables. Either way, you can notice it in action there. So next time you're watching television, flip over to a news channel and see what's happening with the background noise. But this right here is going to be applicable to all sorts of music production and other great things. Let's take a look at how we do this. It's the synth that we're actually going to be affecting the volume of. And we're using Massive. What we're going to do is add a basic compressor. Now, in the upper left-hand corner here, you're going to notice that there's an option for a sidechain trigger to be used. We are going to select, again, it's the kick drum. We want to rise through the mix, and we want to reduce the volume of the synth pad every time one of those kicks hits. So we're going to use the kick track as the trigger for the volume reduction. So think of sidechain in this sense, audio that's going to trigger some sort of action. Okay? Now, what it's going to do is it's going to reduce the volume by a certain amount. So we're not going to have any kind of gain add back here. We're only going to be taking away. We want this to be instantaneous. So we will go ahead and we will take down the attack. It's kind of the opposite of the kind of compression that you use on the kick drum, where you actually want the attack up a little bit to let it transient through. That's the whole point of this ducking. You want to, especially with that transient, the very beginning of that sound, to reduce the volume of this synth. So increase our release here. So it's a little, we don't want it to be like a herky-jerky. The rate at which the compression is taking place once it's engaged is going to be controlled by the knee. The ratio is going to control how much the volume is being reduced. The compressor threshold is going to set the point at which the audio is reduced, or the compressor. The attack is the amount of time it takes to engage, and the release is the amount of time it takes to completely disengage after the audio signal has dipped back above the threshold. All right? And gain, again, is 0. You want to make sure that your auto gain and auto release are turned off if those currently. And we're going to be looking for a gain reduction in this bar, and it's going to be happening on the kick drum. Okay? So right now, this kick drum is causing a reduction of about 3 decibels total in our. Now it's reducing it by about 5. Now, let's get this really drastic, okay? Let's crank this up all the way here. Okay, see, so it can be used as an effect as well as a tool. You can also switch between RMS, root mean square, or peak, which is actually going to use the actual peaks of the audio for the trigger. You can hear that this is a little bit more intense. So, in the end, it really comes down to what you are wanting. Are you wanting that synth to move out of the way just a little bit? Or do you want it to actually be a dramatic or more audible effect? This is an effect that's actually quite popular in many different types of electronic and dance music because it creates this pulse, this heartbeat throughout the entire music. It's not just that the kick drum is driving the music forward and keeping the beat so that people can shake it down on the floor, but it's actually creating like this throbbing presence in the room, and you can't help but get into it. It's a great thing. But that's more of an effect versus a processing. It's going to be right around here. Not too noticeable on an audible level, but it's definitely ducking that synth out of the way. All right, so now let's take a look at how we would accomplish this if we were actually using software. Okay, so we'll just go ahead and we'll put in an ultra beat here. Okay, we'll use. So we're going to cheat. We're just going to use this quick little kick drum, okay? All right, so how we're going to do that, we'll mute this. This, routed. Let's go ahead and drop some. And that way we can just turn off. Loop this out so it matches up before. Okay, so we've got our ultra beat set up, and we're just going to go ahead and show mixer view here so you can see this a bit easier. And we're actually going to send this to a bus. Now, we don't have a way to really use a software instrument as a sidechain trigger directly. So what we're doing is sending this to a bus, which means then that we can go back to the compressor that is loaded on our synth track and change it to bus 1. Okay, as you can see, there is no option for the software tracks. It's all audio. Got to deal with it in audio. Let's go ahead and take a look at this. You can see now that it's reacting to the ultra beat. Okay, very simple. We send this to a bus through a send, and that's it. Now, what if you wanted to have a ghost note or something that is not audible in the mix controlling the volume ducking of that synth? Super simple. We're going to take this, 2 right here. This is our ultra beat, okay? We're gonna change this from stereo output to no output. I switched this to pre-fader to show you that if you would rather not turn off the output entirely, you can just simply turn down the volume. This is routing that's taking place prior to this fader being looked at. So this should still work. It does. We can turn back on. See, I turned down our auxiliary track too, so there's no audible kick drum, but you can see the volume is being reduced. You can hear it. Okay. So if we turn back on our other kick drum, now all of a sudden you have like this ongoing pulsing rhythmic synth thing going on, independent of what this kick track is doing. All right, so that's it. That is sidechain compression or automated volume ducking or whatever we're going to refer to it as. That's it in a nutshell. I hope this helps make sidechaining a little bit more understandable. Think of it as a way to route audio, not MIDI data, but audio into another plugin. Okay, and then that's either going to be allowed through as audio or used as a trigger to trigger some kind of event or action. And that's it. That is as simple as we can make this. Hope it helps. Tune in again soon. We'll be back with more. Thanks, folks.